intros and other things as we need to do it a little later on. But I just wanted to get this piece going. So was there anything that you wanted to talk about in terms of notes? Okay, cool beans. So I'm going to do an intro for you. And then once we do that, we'll just kind of jump into the conversation.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So I'm hearing you okay on my end. I'm hoping you're hearing me fine. I'm getting pretty good levels. All right, cool beans. All right. Hey guys, welcome back to my Disney Brain. Today, what a great day, excellent day to be listening to the podcast. I've got a very special guest with us today, and I'm going to get into why in a few minutes. But I wanted to kind of give you some of his background so you know who it is that we are bringing on the show today. I think you're going to be as excited as I am. We have a person who moved from point to point. He was a former attorney, and he left that practice about 15 years ago or more to move to Orlando to pursue his passion with Disney. And he is the current host of the WDW Radio. It's an award-winning podcast. It's about the Disney brand, the parks, studios, and more. He's also an author of multiple books and audio tours about the Disney parks. He's a founder of the Dream Project. He provides mentoring, consulting, and provides workshops to those looking to build their business brand. And also, he's a keynote speaker. He shares his love for the parks, magic of Disney, and the importance of exceptional customer service, as well as the power of new and social media. Podcasting as well, which is kind of how we ended up today. Live video, community, and entrepreneurship. And he just helps people follow their dreams and passions. And some of the cool things I found out about him while I was doing some research and getting him here on the podcast to talk to you is that he's been named one of the top 50 social media influencers. Again, he's authored multiple books and audio tours. He's amassed more than 1.9 million views on his YouTube channel. One of the fun facts and some really cool things to know about this gentleman is he's raised more than $350,000 for Make-A-Wish Foundation, and his podcast, which is WDW Radio, is ranked number 2 in all of iTunes. And if you haven't figured it out by now, we are talking about Mr. Lou Mongello of WDW Radio. How you doing, Lou?
Hey, Kelly, how are you, man? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. I know your schedule is probably tight, and we've been back and forth on email for a little while, but I'm so glad to be able to be with you today and bring you to our audience because I'm going to tell you a very quick story, then I'm going to kind of jump into our conversation. I think I kind of shared this with you tidbit before, and certainly I've shared it with the audience, but the reason why I started doing this podcast is because I was listening to a Lou Mongello podcast. And I remember you saying, you know what, guys, you're never going to get everything completely where you think it should be. You just got to start and you'll find your voice, you'll find your content, and you'll find your audience. And March of 2019, that's what we did here at My Disney Brain. We listened to Lou Mongello and we struck out. And year and a few months later, we've got Lou on the show. So welcome to the show, Lou.
Thank you. And congratulations on the show. Listen, I know obviously exactly what it takes to, put the work in to do a podcast. And the fact that you've been going for so long is commendable. So congrats.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know I said a mouthful in the intro, but believe it or not, guys, there's so much more about Lou that I haven't said. And so I want to give Lou opportunity, maybe tell your story a little bit to our audience so they kind of know who you are. And I've always described you when I've mentioned you here on the show. I simply use the term a subject matter expert. I've not seen a person, I've not heard a person, blogger, podcaster, radio, you name it, that knows more about Disney than Lou Mongello.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that know way more about me. But clearly I didn't date very much in high school. So I read a lot about Disney But it has. It's been a passion of mine since I was a little kid. We used to live in New Jersey, like you said, and we would drive down from New Jersey every year to Florida and go to Disney World. And I fell in love with this place. And many years later, like you said, I was an attorney and I had an IT consulting company on the side. And I had this idea of writing a book. And all I really knew about was Disney World. And I really just set out to write the book I wanted to read that didn't really exist at the time, which was a trivia book, really just to see, man, if I could do it and if I could get it published. Long story longer, I found a publisher, signed a multi-book deal. And when the book came out, my first Walt Disney World trivia book came out in 2004. I sort of checked the box. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. And then I started a little 2-page website and started writing articles and formed a community. And it was when I launched my discussion forums in January 2004. Remember, this is pre-social media, so there was no Facebook, there was no, Twitter.
Right.
And I saw that there were so many other people that loved Disney as much as I did. That really was a very eye-opening experience for me. So 2005, I hear about this new technology that just came out, weeks or months earlier called podcasting, realized the power of the spoken word over anything I could write. Launched a podcast with no idea what I was doing and what would come from it. But, I'm incredibly blessed and grateful and fortunate that, people read the book and they found the show. And 2008, I left everything behind in New Jersey and sold my house and packed up the Honda Odyssey and moved to Florida, and, get to share my love with other people. And like you said, I also want to help other people turn what they love into what they do as well.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'll tell you, we partner and cross promote with different podcasts. And I was talking to a gentleman, Bryce, over at Right Down Main Street. He literally just started a podcast this year. And when we were kind of interviewing each other to determine if we wanted to work together, your name came up. And what I said to him is what he said back to me. He says, yeah, I listened to Lou and I kind of took the same advice. He said, during this quarantine time, he said, I figured what could it hurt? And he said, I've really been enjoying it ever since. So you're really touching folks. I think that at this point, having the number 2 podcast there. And you're right. So many people do love the parts, and I'm finding that out. And in this community, you're finding and meeting so many great people that hold and share that magic, whether they're in the parts or not.
Yeah. And I love everything about what you said and having nothing to do with me, but I love the fact that you and Bryce are of that same mindset that I am, which is, there's room for everybody in this podcasting space, which has gotten so much more crowded. But I think when we help each other out, the tide rises for everyone, right? Because you don't have to choose one or the other. You can listen to them all. And, it's not like, watching TV and you have to choose at 5:00 what news show you're going to watch. You can and you should listen to other podcasts. And to Bryce's credit, I think, talking about the time in the pandemic and quarantine, look, man, I'll always make lemonade out of lemons. And I think that the quarantine afforded us the opportunity to have something that we always complained we didn't have enough of, which is time.
Yep.
And how you use that time. Look, if you choose to binge watch Lost for the 5th time or start a podcast, that's up to you. But the fact that he did that and leveraged the time, I think is awesome.
Yeah. And it's a great podcast. But yeah, I'll tell you, I'll be honest, and then I'm going to kind of go into the questions. I traveled a lot, not so much obviously lately, but in the work that I do, I found myself a lot of times in airports and on the highways. And I'm not a music guy, particularly, and certainly not a news or radio guy. And I love Disney, and I always like to listen to Disney content. I'll tell you, especially when flying, because I didn't particularly care for flying. I would pop in that Lou Mongello podcast. I would already have it downloaded because
and it put you right to sleep. Got it.
No, let me tell you, I would be so much more relaxed because I would feel connected to the parts, and especially the times when you and your family or just you would be walking around the park, and I could hear people, and I could hear some of the music of the parks. I could hear some of the attractions, and it connected me, and it gave me a sense of ease because that's my happy place. So while I'm 35,000 feet in the air and not particularly enjoying it, I can kind of visualize, kind of being there at the parks, and it really helps. Well, it did help me, and on long drives the same way. So I really appreciate the work that you put in and the commitment, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Well, that means a
So,
lot, man. I thank you.
oh, thank you. Okay. So you've been doing this for a while. So what are some of the lessons learned so far? You are like master podcaster here. If you're giving advice to folks like myself or Bryce or anyone, what are some of the lessons Lou Mongello has learned over the years?
So, to Bryce's and your credit, sometimes just start. If you're waiting for the perfect opportunity, if you're waiting for all the things to align and the planet, it's not going to happen. You need to, I say this to podcasters especially all the time, you need to just go and you be you, right? Don't worry about what other people are doing, what works for them, what you think is going to be popular. I personally, I do a show that I would want to listen to, right? I choose topics based on what I think I would enjoy, because at the end of the day, we are magnets for the kind of people we want to attract. There's no way you're going to get every single Disney. I hear this all the time, like, oh, my show is going to appeal to every Disney fan. Well, it's not, because there's different voices and different personalities, but you go be you, you do the show that you want. And I think you have to be, because podcasting for me still remains the most intimate medium. Like, you literally are, and figuratively are, in someone's ears, and they can hear it if you're faking. So authenticity, I used to say authenticity was the future of business. It's not. It's the current state of business. Like, the fact that we have to claim and be proud to be authentic is crazy in and of itself, but especially on a podcast, because people can tell if you're passionate, if you're faking, but they can also hear if you're happy, if you're crying. I tell podcasters all the time, when you record, smile. Like, put a picture up next to your computer screen of a friend of yours or a family member, and pretend that you're talking to that one person, because that's exactly what you're doing on your podcast. You're talking to the one person on the opposite side that's listening to a friend.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's great advice. And it comes across in your podcast and the podcast. Listen, I don't have a ton of things I listen to. When I like something, I like it. I lock it in. And fortunately, when I found yours, you had a litany of other podcasts. I don't have to worry about just one season, right? So I could always go back and I could listen to other things. But to your point, some of the more special podcasts for me were when you were recalling stories of your dad being in the parks when you were small, and also hearing your kids, because I'm a dad. I go to the parks every year with my kids, with my wife, and I hear some of the same conversations, and it just is great to hear it, when other people are coming from their points of view. So that's one of the things that attracted me to your podcast.
Well, and thank you for that. And I had from the day I first started, there was a lot of things I was very deliberate, very intentional on doing. One of which is holding myself to an incredibly high standard. One, because it's my name on it. Two, because it's associated with Disney, which, is the paramount of quality. And two, I wanted to make it family friendly. I wanted a parent to know that they could listen with their child. And to your point about having my kids on, I've never said this to them, but you as a dad will get this. As parents, we chronicle the growth and maturation of our children through drawings on the refrigerator, class photos, that's how. But for me, I have the incredible blessing of, and I get choked up even when I say this, that I have their thoughts and their voices recorded. So I'm able to hear how they've grown, and not just in terms of what their voices sound like, but the maturity in the things that they think, the things that they feel. Like, I could literally hear when my son sort of turned a corner and all of a sudden, like, these words came out of his mouth, and I'm like, where is this they're coming from? But it's a blessing to be able to have that to look back on.
Yeah. And it's such great content. I shoot the show the majority of the time with my girls, and we're sharing points of view, and to hear them and to hear their thoughts in this format is very interesting. And to your point, to be able to go back, because it was hard for me at first to listen back to my show, because I hadn't heard myself talk so much, in my own ear. So that I had to get used to that. But after I got used to that and the girls been on the show, to listen to them, I find it pleasurable. So my hope is, if I do, hopefully other folks, fathers, families, friends, associates also, because literally we're just talking. This is the same conversation we would have when we come back from the parks, if we're sitting around watching the new Hamilton coming out, or, we just engaged in Disney Plus just came out. We're going to have these conversations. So I said, you know what? We may as well share them and see if we can bring some level of joy to folks, because God knows we need it. Out there today. So you're certainly doing that, Lou.
Yeah, and it becomes relatable. When you hear somebody talking with their children, it's relatable for the parents. And I'm amazed, as I'm sure you are too, how many parents not just listen, us talking with our kids, but they listen with their kids too. And it becomes a family event for them as well.
Yeah, that's always great, because as you know, on TV, we sometimes struggle to find programming where we all can watch. So, but you know what? There's so much that guys, I could talk and ask Lou, because as a Lou's more of a mentor for me, whether he knows that or not. As a protege, I've got 100 questions, but I want to get into some Disney content to really demonstrate to folks what drew me to WDW Radio and why I listen to it on a continual basis, and why it fed me. I live in Atlanta, and I'm not a season, or annual pass holder, so I can't get down to the parks, obviously, as much as I'd like. So we normally go once a year, and it's usually this week, and I literally just canceled my hotel stuff a few days ago, sadly, but we're not going to be able to come this year. We just decided not to. We're going to do it really big in 2021, but this is usually the time of the season that we're there. And throughout the rest of the year, what would I do? I would listen to things that connected me to the parks. And YouTube came along, and fortunately there are some vloggers that hang around there, and they're in the parks all the time. They're not doing anything particularly special, but walking through the parks. But that's something that I enjoy, something I like to see. But I originally started watching Lou, and Lou would talk about how to save money in the parks, and things that you could get for free in the parks, and things that you could do that, potentially you didn't know. So being a subject matter expert, Lou, what are some of the things when people ask you, hey, can we do anything at Disney for free? What are some of the things that you see that surprise people all the time?
I think it's really interesting that, and especially now that, look, money is always a concern. And I think even now more so for a lot of different reasons. When people come to the parks, they're so concerned and consumed with what it costs. But there's a million free things that you can do. And sometimes depending on when you go throughout the year, there's even more so, right? So now during the holidays, I think this is such a wonderful time. And again, making lemonade out of lemons, the pandemic has actually made certain things even more attractive and more special. So coming now during the holidays, it used to be, well, if you wanted to go to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, you have to buy tickets. And if you have a family of four, sometimes that can get, expensive if you're trying to come in on a budget. Now you're able to go to Magic Kingdom and experience a lot of the things that were in a slightly different format that were restricted to the party. So there's sort of these pop-up cavalcades, these mini parades that you no longer need to buy a ticket to the Christmas party for, nor stand around and wait, and sort of lock in your spot on Main Street, right? Sort of have this, buffer zone around you, because they pop up continually throughout the day. Disney Springs, I was at last night. Instead of the Christmas tree trail, which sometimes could get crowded and have long lines on one end, the Christmas trees are now spread out throughout Springs. Again, it's completely free to be able to do that. There's Snope flying in the air. There's Christmas music. There's live entertainment. You can almost make an entire half day just going to Disney Springs, touring the resorts. Fort Wilderness is one of my favorite places to go during Christmas, during Halloween. Get a golf cart, or even just walk around and see all the Christmas displays that campers put up there as well.
Yeah. Well, from listening to your podcast again, I got all those ideas. Even the monorail tour we would go. We would have lunch or breakfast rather at Polynesian, which is my favorite of all the Disney resorts. And we would park there back in the days where, you could do it and, they didn't make you have a reservation, but folks were taking advantage. So there you go. But we would go, to every resort and see those wonderful trees and take pictures and just hang out. And I mean, it's nothing like Grand Floridian, Polynesian. It's just so awesome. And you just think everybody ought to have the chance, at least once, every kid ought to have the chance to see this and take it all in.
And I even think now, as a kid, one of the things I used to love doing, because again, Disney World was always, it still is the safest place in the world. So my parents would let me and my younger brother, or if I brought a friend, just go ride the monorail, for hours. Now you can sort of do that and sort of make a day of going on a monorail tour, riding some of the different watercraft from place to place, go down the Sassagoula River. I think the Skyliner is an attraction in and of itself. And again, pandemic, now that they are not mixing parties into a Skyliner, if you go by yourself, you're going to have a Skyliner vehicle all to yourself. And you want to talk about a serene, peaceful, calming voyage that has incredible views of some of the parks and resorts. I am a huge fan of the Skyliner.
Yeah, I remember when that first came on board. And, a couple snags, but they seem to have it, working completely fine now. I watch probably a video a week, someone's getting on there, to your point, and just hanging out there. There's so many things that folks can do. I was going to ask you, because you've been in Orlando for a little while now, and you've seen the parks maturate over that time. And then, of course, none of us anticipated this year. What are your thoughts on what's happened, given 2020, where Disney is now, and your thoughts for moving forward in terms of maintaining the magic? You've mentioned a couple of things already. What are your thoughts with Disney moving forward?
So, it's funny. I was there. I was actually in Epcot the night that they announced that they were closing, and it was devastating. I went live because I feel like I just needed to talk about it. It was a very emotional experience because you can't fathom Disney World closing. But we also know it's going to be a couple of weeks, right? Or maybe be a month. Nobody could have imagined months later the park would be closed. And I was there, the night that Magic Kingdom closed for the last time, and it was very, very sad. Mm-hmm. And then when the parks reopened again, I was there day one because I felt like I needed to be, and not only needed to be for myself, but needed to share with other people. And Kelly, one of the things I've really wanted to do a lot during this time has been, I've been going live, doing live videos since 2007, but it's been really important for me in terms of content, in terms of sharing, and like you said, connecting people to the experience, to go live from the parks, from the resorts, from Disney Springs, because I want people to be able to see and, more importantly, judge for themselves if and when they are ready to go. I don't do recorded videos because I don't want to edit it. I want you to see exactly the way it is from a first-person perspective. If there's something you want to see, I'll go over and I'll take you to go and see it. And then you can determine how you feel, your level of comfort. I have to say, Kelly, I've been to the parks and resorts and restaurants since the first day that they opened. And I said, look, Disney really is, and this is not me just being a homer, like Disney is and remains the safest place I've been. I've been to airports, I've been on planes, I've been to, back to New Jersey and some other locations. Disney still remains the place I feel safest. Why? Because everybody is doing their part, from the cast members to the guests. Everybody's wearing their face coverings. Everybody's staying distance. Everybody's sort of doing, the way Disney is all the time, right? We're so much more courteous and respectful of each other there. Yeah. And I think going forward, yes, look, there's things that we miss right now, right? We miss parades. We miss fireworks. We miss, some of the things we almost took for granted. I think when they come back, and they will, we're going to have a greater appreciation for them, certainly. But I think there are some valuable lessons to be learned by Disney and by us as guests during this time, that even when the plexiglass comes down and the face coverings come off, there will be additional protocols that will carry over that will overall make everybody still even have a much better experience than they did before.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, this season has caused us to operate a little differently, slowing down, which is, I think, is a good thing, and focusing on things that we don't normally do. That can be family, that can be Disney, the things that you're passionate about. So I'm looking forward to it, which is why I told my family I had a birthday this week. And like I said, normally I would be down in the park celebrating, but I said, you know what? I want to appreciate the time I have with my family. And I said, we'll just do a do-over next year. And literally within, I don't know, a few days of my birthday, I had already booked to be down at Animal Kingdom Lodge for 2021. So I'm very optimistic like you that we're going to be back and in full force sooner than later.
I do as well. You know, look, even in today, they announced that park hopping is coming back after the first of the year. I expect annual passes to start being available once again. They've been testing fireworks this past week over at Magic Kingdom. So slowly things will come back. And I applaud Disney. Remember, they were the first to close and the last to open. They are being very methodical and deliberate in terms of slowly opening things up. And I think from Disney's perspective, man, it has nothing to do with trying to make as much money as possible. I think just the opposite. I think it's retraining cast members. It's letting guests slowly feel comfortable as opposed to just flinging open the doors and now let's see what happens, because and there have been, knock on wood, like no cases of anybody saying, hey, I got sick at Disney, which is remarkable for the number of people that come through.
It is. Which is why I continue to keep my fingers crossed for our friends on the West Coast with Disneyland. I know if we have the passion, they've got the passion, and it's going to be a year soon. I know it's 8 months a few weeks ago. So we're at least in the 9th month of them being closed down out there. And I know Buena Vista Street the other day opened up and there was, you probably seen videos like I did. There were tons of people out there because they want to feel that magic again. They want to be back at Disneyland.
There is something, and I know you know this, man. Like there's something special about these places. And I am not the only dude who is man enough to admit the first day I stepped foot back on Main Street, there was some salty discharge coming out of my eye. I was with some friends last week when they started the Christmas decorations and Christmas music, and he was legitimately like he was crying because it's just that it has nothing to do with riding Mine Train or even in my case eating something. It's just being in this place and the way it makes you feel.
Yeah. Listen, I've got a certain life philosophy, and I sort of translate it this way. When so many people, when you personally have an intention, like you did, some years ago to move from New Jersey to Orlando, you came with a certain level of expectation, and it was met. Now there's work involved, but when so many people intend to have such a wonderful experience in one location, it literally could have been out in the middle of a field. It just happens to be at Magic Kingdom or Animal Kingdom. And when we get to those gates and we're there together, that energy meets other energy, like energy, and there's explosions all the time. And yeah, the place is special, but really, I think it's the energy that the people bring and the cast members and folks like us that are doing podcasts and that energy is a positive energy. And when it all comes together, that collective energy, it's a great thing to be a part of because there's nothing else like it.
I agree with you 100%, man. There is incredible power in positivity. And, I talk about choosing the good all the time. And look, Disney is Disney and we love it as much as we do. We go back every year. We move here. We podcast about it. Why? Because Disney exceeds our expectations all the time. When I came back in to the parks, when I went to Disney Springs last night, I wasn't expecting to see what I got. And look, it's silly, whether it's more holiday decorations or a character, a physically distanced character experience, or
Mhm.
Snope in the marketplace. There are little things that to us as fans mean a lot, and it does, and it gives you such a warm, happy, positive feeling.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. Again, I could talk to Lou to death about some specifics. Lou he's a speaker, he's a coach, he does events, and we're going to get into that and some other things that he does besides Disney. But I wanted to kind of really grab some of the core information from you that I do with every guest. I always have to know who your favorite character is. Favorite Disney character.
So I love Peter Pan. I love Peter Pan. There's something about, like Disney makes us feel like a child all the time. Plus,
Yeah.
he lives on an island. He gets to hang out with pirates. Like, he's got a beautiful beachside, place there, and he can fly. So,
Right. The next question is going to be harder because I know you've been to multiple parks. So we've been to Disneyland and the Disney World, and I enjoy them both. But if I'm being honest, I love Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. I really don't feel like I've been to Disney if I haven't been to Magic Kingdom. So during your travels over the years, what have you found to be your favorite, even if you could say it that way, your favorite Disney location, theme park wise?
Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom is my home park. I love it more than anything. However, Tokyo Disney Sea is far and away, hands down, not even close, the most incredible Disney park I have ever been to in terms of storytelling, environment, food, people, cleanliness. It's on an absolutely different level.
Mhm.
It is an amazing place.
That's not the first time I've heard that, and which is why it's a bucket list item for me. So cool. So we're going to get to your favorite topic now, and this is probably harder than these other two questions, and that's food. One of the things that I learned about Lou, listening to his podcast, is that he is a foodie, and we all are. We love going to the parks, part of the experience, obviously the attractions. We love this, the attractions and things like that. But if there was no food, something would be missing. So favorite food, and I almost want to give you a top three because I know how difficult this is going to be to narrow to one, but what's your favorite food?
So, like, individual food item at Walt Disney World?
Just place to eat, restaurant, or individual, however you want to do it.
All right. So the Boathouse in Disney Springs is my favorite restaurant, like, on planet Earth. It ticks every box: food, service, environment, location, everything. I'll say in park, Takumite in Japan, in Epcot Center, is an outstanding dining. I put Takumite over Victoria and Albert's in terms of memorable dining experiences.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that's another one I'm going to add to the list then. Tell me about the Boathouse, because when I hear you talk about the Boathouse, it is with reverence and passion. and I'll tell you, I'm plant-based. So in the years where I was not, I have eaten at the Boathouse. And I can't remember what I had. I think it was like a fish and chips type situation. And I was able to kind of sit on the dock. It's very, very pleasant. It's a beautiful place. But tell us all why the passion for the Boathouse. What is it about the Boathouse?
So, first and foremost, the food is outstanding. It's a scratch kitchen, fresh seafood every day. It's a Gibson steakhouse. So whether you are on the seafood side or the meat side, I think I'll put the Gibson's steak at Boathouse up against Yachtsman and Le Cellier any day of the week. Because I think it's better. I love the fresh seafood. The coriander seared tuna is some of the best food I've ever put in my mouth. But you can have the best food in the world, but if the service is not equally as good, you will not have as good of a dining experience. And they're both, I think they're both exceptional. And like you said, sitting out on that dock like that, especially, now in the fall and the 2 weeks of winter that we get here in Florida, it's beautiful.
Yeah. You remember, like I do, when it was downtown Disney. And when we were going through the transition of it becoming Disney Springs, there were so many questions. What is it? Why? Why is it? There are multiple, alterations in downtown Disney, Pleasure Island coming and going, and all these other things. But I was excited about Disney Springs. And when it opened and when I came, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. My favorite place to sit is really anywhere next to the springs.
Mhm.
And I found several locations. One is on the deck, the patio of Blaze Pizza, looking towards Planet Hollywood. It is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And there's so many of those types of views now at Disney Springs. And there's the music. It's just such a wonderful component, free component to coming to the theme parks. Now, obviously, you got to pay for what you eat and buy, but just to come and hang out with your family on an off day or travel day, you can't beat it.
I call Disney Springs the fifth park because for us as locals, it really is. Far and away, we go to Disney Springs both alone, with friends, with family, more than I go to any other park, more than I go to any theme park. Because
Yeah.
you're right, there's so much to do that you don't need a ticket for. There's so many great dining experiences. I think, to your point, sitting out on the enclosed porch at Homecoming, right on the water, the second floor of Morimoto, sitting outside, has a beautiful view of Springs. You can sit outside at places like Raglan Road with the live music. Wine Bar George, same thing up on that second floor patio. Or last night I was actually at Jock Lindsay's, sitting outside by the water, and it was just lovely, like so nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the guys, you're listening. The easier way probably to ask you, Lou, this question is: which restaurants have you not done reviews for? I love to hear whether it's you and your family going, or you and the gentleman that his handle is Big Fat Panda. I don't know his name,
I
but
don't either.
I really enjoy you guys as you go through, because you get a sense of. I was in New York. This is a true story. I was in New York for the holidays about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And as I said, I'm plant-based, but I sit and I listen to you, and probably there was a lady, the Big Fat Panda was there, and there was another guy, and you guys were at, so where the Edison is, next door is
Maria and Enzo's.
But the bigger restaurant, I think you guys were reviewing that restaurant.
Was the Hideaway? Was it Enzo's Hideaway?
There. Yeah. And I listened to the whole thing. I listened to people talk about, rib tips or meat. Why? Because you guys were going in such great detail describing the food, and what an awesome thing. Listen, nowadays nobody buys. Amazon has kind of got us in this frame now. I think the reviews mean everything. If you're a retailer, if you're an online seller, and these sorts of things, people's reviews are very important, because that's what people are looking at before they come. And to hear you guys talk about, even when you did the Edison or Boathouse or wherever you did, when I sit and I listen to, because you can't pump information into the kids. If it doesn't taste good, they're going to say, hey, this is nasty, but I heard your kids talk about the food, and I said, you know what, the next time we go, here's some places I'm going to check off because I heard someone review it.
And you're 1,000% right. We are in an economy which is look, Disney could go out and say Pecos Bill's has the best hamburger in Walt Disney World. Mm-hmm. That's a marketing message. When somebody that you trust or is a friend and says, hey, Pecos Bill's has the best hamburger in Walt Disney World, the messaging and the impact and the import is very, very different. And a big part of the reason why, Kelly, I do my reviews the way I do it, which is us walking into a restaurant with a handheld recorder and recording every aspect of it, is because I want you, my friend, the listener, to feel like you are sitting at that table with me. I want you to hear completely unedited what the service sounds like. What does the background ambiance sounds like? I want you to hear the clang of the silverware, and I want you to hear our immediate and authentic and unrehearsed and unsort of processed reviews of what we're tasting. If we're making a yummy sound, we're making a yummy sound. If something doesn't look or taste right, you're going to hear it. And, especially when I go with my kids, I love it because there is no prompting. I say, guys, you just tell me how you feel, have at it, and go. And if they don't like their, I was going to say French fries, but my kids, their palates have gotten much more expensive and mature. My daughter loves oysters. She's gotten very expensive in her old age. Yeah. But I want her, because she too is going to speak not just about the food, but her opinion is going to resonate with somebody differently than mine will.
Yeah. Yeah. Her age group, because I think your daughter, so my daughter's 13. So I think they're kind of almost in that same age group. And 9 times out of 10, she's with me in the car and I'm listening to things. So it has an effect because, like you said, I always tell people here, I am not there as much as I'd like to be. So when I go, I want to maximize my time. And I assume everyone does. So if I can get hotel reservation reviews or recommendations or dining, that's just one less thing I have to do when I get down there, because you have a family of 4. There are 3 people that you've no idea what they're in, what their palates are like today. So when you're at the parks, if you have some strong suggestions for them, or even prior to going to the parks, you say, hey guys, here's what I'm anticipating we're going to eat. It cuts down on all the conversations standing in line or outside of the place. You can go and you can feel confident as the logistician, if you will, that you've made a pretty good choice based on a review.
Yeah. And it's funny. Sometimes when I take my family, I won't even tell them where we're going ahead of time. So I want them to go in with no preconception or even looking at the menu until they get there, because I want to hear their thought process as they go through it. I want to sort of hear exactly what their unrehearsed reaction might be to every aspect of where we're going to review. Cool.
Well, listen, you're hitting the nail on the head, my friend, because I absolutely love it. And I'll sit and I'll listen to it. And I may not order any of it because I can't eat it, but it sure sounds good.
Well, when you come down, we're going to have to get together and eat somewhere. And we'll find a good, some place that's got some good plant-based options. And I'll eat all the non-plant-based options.
That's the deal. That's the deal. So, guys, here's a display, if you will, of what I refer to as subject matter expert. When I listen to Lou's podcast, I hear guests on that are connected with Walt Disney World, have worked at the parks, currently cast members at the park, who are historians and people who know things that I don't even know if they're written down anywhere. They just happen to have been in the room when these things happen. And it's exciting and is these sorts of things that make you want to dig deeper, because you always hear Disney Vault. There's a vault somewhere. And some of these folks, I think, have had the key or have had a chance to look inside this room. And where I'm going is this. Sometimes I would hear really obscure things on Lou's podcast. Like, I never even knew that was a thing. Like, who knew? I didn't, that there was a dragons or legend. What was it? Dragons, or there was a park that was being theorized that the essence was beasts and dragons and things like that. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what didn't happen with that?
Yeah. So part of the initial concept for Disney's Animal Kingdom was going to be the idea of, animals throughout history, dinosaurs as well as current animals. And there was also this world of fantasy. It was going to be called Beastly Kingdom. And the idea was it was going to be very fantasy based. There's going to be sort of this walk through castle and dragons and all kinds of amazing, very cool, interactive type of experiences, as well as rides and things like that for guests, with some edutainment built in there as well. That was really going to be part of sort of phase 2 of Animal Kingdom. For a lot of different reasons, it ended up not happening. They actually built Camp Mini Mickey as a placeholder for where that land was going to be. And then eventually, when they abandoned the idea completely, Camp Mini Mickey went away. We ended up with Pandora. There, you can actually still find some remnants of Beastly Kingdom as you walk over the bridge to Africa. If you look to the left, down by the water, there's actually a rock formation that looks like a dragon's head. And for years, it used to actually like spew out like steam and smoke, like it was a fire-breathing dragon. And unfortunately, that's not there. But you can still see that dragon head over by the water.
That's cool. Those are the things that you just don't know unless you know. And I can't remember the guy's full name, but his first name was Jim. That
Porkus.
You had on some.
Porkus.
I'll tell you, when he gets to going, I mean, he he has he's got so much information. I'm thinking to myself, is Lou writing this down to record? I'm like, there's a lot. I was driving back from Huntsville from a conference I was at over in Huntsville a year or so ago. And I heard him talk about how Walt grew up, how he would take his kids to school, literally drive them and pick them up and things like that. And I said, man, this guy knows so much. And it's just why I love listening and, to your podcast. What is one of the things that you've learned when you're talking to somebody like Jim that fascinates you about Walt or about Disney?
Listen, I'm fascinated about Jim. Like, I've known Jim for a long time. He's a savant. He has all this knowledge. You talk about my Disney brain. Jim's Disney brain is crazy. Like, literally, it's great. But in the best possible way, because he will be able to memorize and just recall like such obscura sometimes. Yeah. Which, makes for some very tangential, long conversations on the podcast. But, he'll talk about something and it'll spark another idea and it'll sort of go down this rabbit hole. And the fact that he's able to just spew this information out without really any notes in front of him is remarkable.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, he's a gold mine. And I'll tell you, I drove from Huntsville and I probably was almost back in Georgia by the time, he was kind of winding down. But I learned so much because you could just tell this wasn't written down anywhere. This guy knew this stuff and he was just letting it go. And it was like you're just kind of sitting there listening. And this guy was in the room somewhere hearing these things. And it's pretty great. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and he's met so many people over the years. So the stories that he tells come from personal experience, which I like too.
Yeah, that's great. I know, Lou, that you do more than Disney. I think probably Disney was a launching pad maybe into your popularity. I've seen you on the news before. I've watched your lives. Matter of fact, the live that you were talking about when you went back to Epcot the first day, I was watching that. And I really enjoy that. I also hear a lot of times that, you guys are doing meetups, which is awesome. But you're traveling to different parts, like you talked about Tokyo, Disneyland. What's your favorite component of what you do? Like, if you could say, you know what, I love the idea of meeting new people who are Disney nerds like me, or I love the idea of traveling, because I can't think of her name, but the lady that has the travel agency that you travel with most of the time, that sounds brilliant as well in terms of how to get these things done. You've got a powerful, powerful team, my friend.
Thank you. And her name is Becky, and she's been a long time, forget to sponsor, just friend, because of, again, the value that she brings to a listener. But, this might sound like the lame answer, but it's true, man. When I say that it's people, it is. And it's meaningful to me. And I freely talk about this on the show. Growing up, I did not have a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. And now I've got the blessing of so many wonderful friendships and relationships that I've made because of this show with people who are very much like-minded. When I say that, I don't mean, we just love going to the parks and we like Mickey Mouse. No, I think for us as Disney fans, I think there is this shared value system and ideal set that we all have, whether it be just about, family or entertainment or whatever it might be, that is this common thread that's woven in between all of us, whether doesn't matter where you're from, what your background might be. That's sort of what it is. And sort of that Disney is that thing that ties it all up. So it's friendships that I've made in terms of people. It's people that I've been able to meet as a result of this. The people who I've been able to interview on the show. Again, I interview them as a fan more than a content creator, because I love and respect and admire and appreciate their work, whether it's an actor, a composer, an executive, whatever it might be. There's times I have to pinch myself too. Like, am I really going to sit down and talk with this person? Because I come from a fan perspective first.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm living that experience now, because when I first reached out to you, I said, he's probably got 100,000 emails and his schedule is completely booked. And I was so overwhelmed when you responded. I said, man, whatever we need to do to make it happen. I wanted to talk to you because I felt like I actually knew you from listening to the podcast. You have a way, and I'm talking more to the listeners now than to Lou. Lou has a way of making you feel like literally you've come over to his home. He's welcoming you inside, and you just kind of sit down and hang out for a while. He literally calls you his friend. Like, I've listened to multiple podcasts, and his entrance and exits are relatively the same, where he's calling you his friend, and you feel that Disney match. For a long time, I thought you were affiliated with the parks, because I thought it was, was that Disney thing. And it is, but it's just also Lou's thing. So I'm going to really strongly suggest to all of my listeners at My Disney Brain to please go over and check out WDW Radio, Lou Mongello. And I was telling you before that Lou does several other things. I'm going to let him go into that, because we're going on an hour, and I know it'll be 2 hours. And I said, I'm going to be cognizant of Lou's time.
No, listen, man, I'm having a great time. We could do this all day.
Cool. Well, listen, the invite is wide open. Your invite is wide open. Anytime you like to come back, the door is wide open. I will tell you this: your top tens, I absolutely love. With I don't know if you want me to call him Timmy, but your top tens are the best. And for listeners, if you want to just be entertained and just use your imagination for an afternoon, you can listen to some of Lou's top tens with Tim, and you will not regret it.
Oh, thank you. And I've known Tim for a long, long time. We're probably going on, 13, 14 years of knowing each other. He too, he's a very smart, creative guy. He's written books called Guide to the Magic. We did Celebrations magazine together. And he makes it a lot of fun. And that's exactly, that's what it's about. I want the listener to know and not just feel like they are listening to a friend, because that's how I want them to look at me, because that's how I look at them, because I only get to do what I do because of the friendship they extend to me. That your time is your most valuable commodity, and the fact that somebody chooses to spend and share it with me means a lot. And I do want people to know that, and it's not a line, man. When I say that we're friends, whether we have met yet or not, it's 100% true. And that's why I loved, and I miss desperately, doing Meet of the Month and doing events, so that the relationship goes not just from listener or email or on social or in a Facebook or whatever, but I'm a handshake and a hug kind of guy. And post-COVID, I'm bringing the handshake and hugs back in a big way, because I'm having like the DTs from not, having hugs in a long time. I miss that face-to-face. And look, a lot of that, like I said, comes from me. I know that, as somebody who didn't have a lot of friends, and sometimes, we feel like we're outcasts or nobody gets us, especially as adults who love Disney. If there's not somebody in your social circle of friends, you feel like, well, I must be a weirdo because nobody else likes this. We're out there, right? We're out there in spades, because there's so many of us, and I want people to feel that way. And whether you listen or you come to an event solo, like, not to quote the song, but you really, you do have a friend in me, and we are friends. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. So Lou, tell us what else I found a wealth of information. All you have to do is Google Lou Mongello, Mongello, or go to his website, loumongello.com. And Lou's doing so much for people. And the thing that I love is, listen, I went to relatively good schools, public schools, with the intention of going to a good college. Getting into a good college, getting good grades, and getting out to get a good job. This is the generation that I come from. And one day on this good job, I decided I don't really like this. This is not something I'm passionate about. Yes, I'm smart and I've been in logistics for years and I can do these things, but I'm not passionate about it. And I began in my mid to late 20s to look at things I was passionate about. No one told me when I was a kid in high school, middle school, or elementary school, find something you're passionate about and all the other stuff will come. It was more of the grades, get good grades so you can get a good job and these sorts of things. Well, I tell my kids, I still want you to get good grades, but I want you to look at it from a different lens. What are you passionate about? What is it that you really, really, you would do for free? Like you're probably doing now. What is that thing? Do that thing and figure out a way to monetize it. And what Lou does, from my limited view, and I'm going to let Lou go into detail, is help people do that, live from their passion and create out of their passion. So Lou, you can tell us what else that you do.
Well, everything you're saying, man, is 100% on point. We grew up in a generation where you go to school, you go to work, you have your job, and then, after you retire or on weekends, that's when you go and do the thing that you love, right? But I believe life is too short, and in this day and age, that's no longer the case, right? I don't think that you should get up and be like, oh, I hate my job, I hate my boss, but I can't wait to go home and work on this other thing.
Sure.
Now we have the tools and the opportunity to take that thing, whatever it is, and turn it into something that we can create on our own. The gatekeepers are no longer there, right? It used to be if you wanted to publish a book, you had to find a publisher. They had to give you permission. They had to do it for you. Now you can publish a book in a week. You wanted to be on quote unquote on TV. Somebody had to give you an opportunity. Now you can start your own YouTube channel. You want to start, a radio show, you start your own podcast. So the gatekeepers aren't there. And I do believe in that, man. I do believe that you should get up and love what you do every single day. Entrepreneurship, it's interesting. Growing up as kids, entrepreneur, in air quote, is what you called unemployed people, right? Entrepreneur. Then it became a buzzword. Then it was sort of, but now it's sort of the thing that people and kids are aspiring to do. And I think we as parents are hopefully setting an example for our kids and other kids who might be listening who go, wait a minute, these guys, like Kelly loves Disney. He started this podcast. He's making a business out of it. Like I can do that too. And again, without sort of laying it out for my kids that way, I'm hoping that I'm setting a visible example of just that. Look, I was going down this path of going to law school, and I was quote unquote supposed to be a lawyer for the rest of my life. And I made this 180-degree turn, which on paper is crazy, man. Like, there's a fine line between insanity and taking, calculated leaps of faith and taking a risk. And that's why I did it, man. It's for me, it came down to fear, and it wasn't a fear of failure. It was a fear that 5, 10, 20 years down the road, I'd look back and go, man, you know what? I wonder what if I would have done this? What if I would have given this thing a shot? I think what if are the two most powerful words out there, because it could either be something that is negative and you look at with regret, but you need to turn around and say, what if I give this thing a shot? What if I try and do this podcast or write this book or whatever it is? There's nothing standing in the way of you doing that. And you're right. I do want to help people. I wanted to help people when I practiced law. I wanted to help people. I had an IT consulting company business. I wanted to help people have a better Disney vacation. And now I want to also help people turn their passion into their profession or do something with it so they don't ever have that sense of regret. Because I didn't have anybody, other than my dad before he passed, to help sort of guide me along the way. And I want people to know that there are people like me out there who can help you, and whether it be through teaching or accountability or a combination of both.
Yeah. Well, guys, to get in touch with Lou, just go to his website, Lou, Lou, Mongello, Mongello, no spaces, dashes, or hyphens.com. And you can contact Lou through his website. Lou does public speaking. He does different events, personal coaching, like he says. And if you're interested or have questions, I'm sure Lou will be able to answer those questions. Listen, I don't know what else to say besides he's a very inspirational guy. He has put his money where his mouth is. He actually has this successful podcast, and it is in the vein of something that many people would say as an adult person, man, this is a little strange. But what you'll find out is when you get out there, there's so many more people. This is what I found out. I found out that I'll be transparent with part of why we started this. A lot of times we go to the parks, you may or may not see a lot of people of color, depending on when you go. But when people of color go on vacation, particularly Black people, you want to know that it's someplace that you will enjoy also. And it helps when you see anyone enjoying something, but it resonates more when you see someone that looks like you as well. Is this place safe? Am I going to be welcome there? And things like that. And we enjoy the parks no different than anyone else. But I think it's important for people of color to see other people of color doing things in that space. And they say, okay, this must be okay. Just like, like we're talking about with the kids, this must be okay. And that's kind of how we stepped out. We said, you know what? We love the parks no different than anyone. But I think is a keen element to show that as people of color, you can go and hang out at Disney. It's not really a weird thing. As a matter of fact, I've found this large group over here that's been kind of hanging out. Nobody really knew about. And so there's plenty of adults, plenty of men, plenty of dads. Disney's cool on any level. And all you have to do is look at the vlogs and the podcasts and different things. I think it's just like a floodgate opening, to more and more content.
Man, I again, you keep saying things and I keep repeating, like, I just love the intent and the philosophy of what you do, and that you're right. One of the things about Disney is that it's so welcoming and so accepting. And that's what this community is too. This community that we found, I think, as Disney fans is, I used to say, like, when it first started, like, this is sort of where those of us who were sort of like the outcasts, like, I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. This is where we all came together and we feel welcome. And even more so, whatever it is, from your background to your, it doesn't matter what you are. And the fact that everybody can have an equal voice and be heard. I love that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the fact that you could be standing in line at any attraction, and there are probably 10 different ethnic groups there, and we're all there for the same reason. It's for the same reason. The kids are there. Everyone's there because we love the feeling of the energy we talked about before. And somehow Walt was able to capture it years ago and bottle it and put it in these parts, and we're able to go and still enjoy it. And it transcends politics and race and these sorts of things. All you have to do is look around. And that's really, in my mind, why we enjoy it so much, because it becomes a utopia for us. Mm-hmm. And we were very protective of it, even of COVID, because we thought if we can hold on to this, things are not so bad. So when it closed, people really became concerned. So anyway, I could talk that piece to death. I have absolutely, as we eclipse an hour, Lou, I've so enjoyed you being on my Disney brain. And I'm not kidding. I actually want you to come back because I've got more questions I want to ask. But you have an open invitation to come any time. I'm going to, again, tell my audience where to matter of fact, if you want to tell the audience where to find you on social and the best place to connect with Lou Mongello.
Well, first of all, thank you again for reaching out, for being so patient. Again, I told you this. I answer every email personally, so sometimes it's a little, I'm a little behind on catching up on email, but I appreciate it, and hopefully it was worth waiting for, because I really, really, really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope we can have it again, both on a podcast and in person one day at Walt Disney World soon. We'll share that meal together that I promised you. I'll make it easy. All the Disney stuff that I do is at WDWRadio.com. I am at Lou Mongello on all social, and LouMongello.com is where I do everything on the business side of things.
Cool. Guys, go and check him out. Make sure you subscribe to Lou's podcast. You will not regret it. And Lou, again, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. Thanks,
man.
Lou.
You
That's
are
really
good,
great.
man. You are good. I really, you know what? Like, look, sometimes you do, segments with other people, and it's nice and it's fun, but there's such a good, like, vibe that I get from you, and such good intent and passion and purpose behind what you do. So I really appreciate that, man.
Listen, I tell you, it resonated with me I've listened to you for the last 5-6 years. I kid you not. And I wanted to do this. And I thought, you know what? I just don't know. Maybe he's too busy or whatever, but I'm so glad we're able to connect, because I just love your podcast. And I think what you're doing, just keep going, because at 610, hopefully you get to 1220 and keep going, because there's so many people listening, and it's helping out. There've been days when, you have those downers and, you're doing whatever, but to hear a kind voice and coming across, it just helps, especially now. And you've got a knack of doing that, and your family's great. I wanted to get into more detail, but like I said, maybe we can do this. We can come back at some point and talk in a little bit more detail, when we have the time.
Yeah, I would love to. And I know people say this all the time, but I mean it, man. If there's some way that I can help you out, there's something I can do for you, please let me know. I
will.
I do believe that the tide rises for all of us by helping each other. I know when I first started, I didn't have a lot of help, and I was figuring out along the way. So if you ever say, hey man, how do I do this? Or can you help me with this? I'm happy to do it.
Cool.
You just let me know.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Lou, and you have a great day. You've got my contact information. We didn't really discuss how we wanted to broadcast this, but obviously I'm going to put it on my Disney Brain. If you wanted to put it on WDW, feel free. Matter of fact, I would love it if you did that.
Yeah, send me. I was going to say, send me any links when this goes live, and I'll be sure and share it out. The other thing I was about to tell you too is send me, or I can send you. So I just did my new Disney interviews book just came out. I'm happy to send you a copy, either a digital format, or if you want a physical one, or if you want one to give away, I'm happy to send you either, both. It's up to you.
Yeah, I would love to. When this goes up next week, I'd love to be able to kind of pump the crowd up with the giveaway. And I had something in mind, but your book would be great. I'll shoot you my address. Perfect. And we love to do giveaways here as well. So yeah, I'll shoot that over to you today.
Cool. And I'll get that right out to you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
Thanks again, man. Thanks so much, Kelly. Have a great weekend. And if I don't talk to you, have a great Thanksgiving.
You do the same. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.